Welcome to Unscripted with Russo. I'm your host, Ashley Russo, president and executive producer of The Peak TV. For our podcast, we decided to explore the people behind the narratives. I'll introduce decision makers and influencers who are winners in their field and find out the intimate story behind their rise to success. Welcome to Unscripted, everybody. I am here with a new friend of mine, Qiana Cressman. She is the founder of Emerge Woman magazine. And Qiana, it's so great to have you here.
Thank you. It's great to be here, Ashley.
You know, it's funny. One of these people where several people, I think, told both of us, you need to meet.
Yes.
They kept saying, Ashley, have you met Qiana? Qiana, have you met Ashley? And then when we met, we said, oh, gosh, how have we not met?
Yes.
So it's been a pleasure just getting to know you, and I'm happy to have you here today.
Thank you so much for having me. I saw an article, and my CEO actually sent a copy of that to the department heads, and I said, that's a powerful woman I have on board right there. He was like, yeah, she's great.
That's awesome. Well, thank you. And I know you shared some stuff of ours, and we're excited to talk about, you know, your magazine, Emerge Woman.
Yes.
One year.
One year. Wow.
What an accomplishment. Having started a business myself, I know what it feels like to get to that point and you take a quick breath and then you roll up your sleeves and say, lots more work to do.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, normally in this segment of the show, we talk a little bit about who you are, where you came from, and let us get a picture of little Qiana.
Oh, okay.
So where'd you grow up and what was your family like?
Sure. I grew up in Philadelphia. I went to Catholic school my whole life, so I was in uniforms until college. So it was like, oh my gosh, this is wonderful. I can wear regular clothes every day. Literally from kindergarten all the way through senior in high school.
Wow.
So I grew up in Philadelphia, started out, my first degree is in laboratory technology, so I started out in the lab. Obviously, I love people and love to talk, so that didn't go over too long.
You weren't about being in the lab all day?
Exactly. So I wore scrubs for about 4 years, worked in blood bank and microbiology, and then went and got a degree in business. And so within my love for science, I found that there was a way I could educate and intersect with the business world and use my scientific background to educate diverse communities. So that's really kind of how I began. I lived in Atlanta for a little bit.
Now, in your family, do you have siblings?
I do. I have two sisters.
Okay.
Yes, they both live in
Where
Philadelphia.
do you fall in the?
I'm the oldest.
You're the oldest. I'm the oldest too.
Yes. Okay. Oh, you are.
Yes.
Wonderful.
The bossy ones.
Exactly. The mother hens.
And what were you like as a kid? Describe yourself at 7 or 8 years old.
I was very much a deep thinker beyond my years. So it was no problem for my mother to put me on an aircraft and me to make friends with all the adults. So I should have listened to my high school teacher who said you need to go into communications, but I ended up rerouting into the right path.
Happened eventually.
Because I just love to connect with people. So as a child, I was always interested in people's stories. I mean, they were like, who is this 10-year-old asking us how we met? Like I would meet a couple that fascinated me, and I was just always interested in.
And this is why we're kindred spirits.
This is why
my mother always says that my career is perfect for the nosy kid who asks a lot of questions.
That was me.
And I just would talk to anybody, and I was always curious about their life. It didn't matter where I was or what they did.
And look at where you are now.
It's so funny. And what about activities? Were you into any kind of sports? Did you do music?
I was more of a people person and a connector. So all of the activities that I was in was spirit committee and, the Spanish club and, all of the things that sort of developed students and people. And so that's what I pretty much gravitated toward. Anything that I can speak, write, communicate, connect folks, that's always where my interest lied.
Okay. And so you went to school. Tell me about where did you go to college?
I went to Shorter University in Rome, Georgia. And then I also went to Harcum Junior College and received a degree in medical laboratory technology. So so my business degree is from Shorter University.
What was the first job that you had, and when did you have that job?
Out of college or before?
Before. Very first job in life.
Wendy's.
Okay.
That was like my official on the payroll job. Obviously, there's little babysitting jobs you have here and there. And when I was in college, I used to stuff envelopes for Wilkie Lexus. So that was like a big thing. But my first job at 16 was at Wendy's. I was a cashier. So, I would give
Tell
my
me about what you
friends
learned
free
from a job love like that. Yeah, I love Frosties.
Yes, right? I learned I wasn't as bad at math as I thought I was. So I was able to handle that register. I was mortified when I was first, hired. And I was like, oh my gosh, can you put me in the burger part? Don't put me in at the cash register. But it was great. They were like, no, you like to smile and you bring the customers.
I was gonna say,
we're putting you in the front.
Good with people.
So it was a great job. Like I wore my little uniform right to work on the bus. And I'm like, people were like, she really loves her job. So, but that was my first job, Wendy's.
And I like that you learned you were better at math than you thought.
I was.
A good connector of people, I'm sure, in
right.
that role. And then what about college? I mean, it is interesting to me that you're so vivacious and you have such a great connection. Of course, that's more of what you're doing now. But what was it about sciences that drew you in so much?
It was just a natural interest in how things evolve. And science, in the science world, things just continue to evolve, sort of like, the human life cycle. And so from my youth, I was just always interested in science, but I never knew it could intersect with communication. And so it just opened up a lot of paths for me to do what I love to do, which is connect, but I could also tie it to something that I loved. So I traveled, several places across the country and presented different abstracts for big associations and all of that. And I was like, who knew that I could actually combine talking a lot with science? And so I just always loved science in high school, grade school. And then when I, found the platform that it can be used as a tool to educate and improve the health of communities, I was like, wow, this is awesome.
So incredible. And now what about out of school, and you studied some business management. What was that first job?
I actually was still in the industry, but my first job was I became a manager for the largest bone marrow transplant program in the Southeast in Atlanta. So this is a facility that treats cancer patients, people who have leukemia, and they're one of the biggest treatment facilities in Georgia. So
was that a nonprofit job or a science for-profit? Okay,
it was a nonprofit job, but science-based. And so I managed the blood center side. And so I would see literally people coming in for their chemotherapy and know that what we were doing, my team and I, were directly impacting these patients and their families, the transfusion products that we were bringing in from the outside. So somebody would come and drop their wife off or their child off to get their chemotherapy and then come right over to our blood center and donate. So that was a huge...
I would imagine as a young woman that had to have been an impactful experience.
It was. I was only 27 and I was the first African-American manager in that role. It was started by 4 very brilliant physicians, and they entrusted me to be in that role, and it was huge. It was huge for me. So
wow,
yeah,
incredible! What a cool experience.
It was.
Now at this point, you were talking about you lived in Atlanta for a while. You went to school. Where else did you were in school?
Hartman College.
Yep, and then you were from Philly. What brought you back north? I mean, how long did you stay in the South?
Love. Woo! I met the love of my life. So it was partly that, but also my dad's health took a turn, and so my sisters have children and I don't. So I was single, easy for me to move, pick up, transferred within the company that I was in because I was working for the Red Cross at that time. And Terry and I, my husband, we were dating long distance. So we had met actually in Pennsylvania, but lost contact for like 5 years. And then when the Facebook boom happened, I know I probably sound super old, but it was like just coming out of MySpace, and I was on a board of directors for a nonprofit, and they were like, everybody open up a Facebook page. It's this, great tool that we can start, really promoting the organization. So it was many years ago. And I said, I'm trying to think of people. And I said, there was this cute guy that I met at an event at a church that I went to one time. So we ended up connecting, and the rest is history. So we dated. He was here in Pennsylvania and I was in Atlanta. And then he ended up proposing while I was living in Atlanta. And at the same time, my dad's health took a turn and my mom needed help. So I came on back.
That's a lot of good reasons to move back here.
Right?
Yeah, that's sort of a love, right?
Right?
Exactly.
Exactly.
Your husband, your nieces and nephews.
Yep. So we were married in Easton, right here in Easton.
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
Wow.
So
what a journey.
Exciting, right?
Yeah. Now when it's in the winter, do you ever miss being down south?
Sometimes, but I should have really been born there because I am no match for the cold. But I love it here. I love it in the valley. It's I just love the views. And people take it for granted when you've lived here, all your life sometimes. But nature is a really good place for me to think. process. Create as a creative, it really is my think tank, being around nature. So that's one of the things I love about living in the Lehigh Valley.
I agree with you. I think that it's wonderful because we've got a little bit of an urban feel with the cities.
Exactly.
But we are so close to nature and getting outside.
Exactly.
And there are so many cool ways to experience it here very quickly.
Yes.
That doesn't have to be a whole day trip. So, all right. Well, we're going to take a quick break with Qiana Cressman with Emerge Woman magazine. However, when we get back, we're going to talk a little bit more about some of the other things you do, because you wear a lot of hats. One of which is that you're an ordained minister, and I want to hear more about that.
Yes.
All right. You're listening to Unscripted. We'll be right back. You know, family time is about creating memories together to last a lifetime. And what better way to bond than spending time at some of the amazing attractions the Lehigh Valley has to offer? You know, you can cheer on the Lehigh Valley Phantoms or take a walk on the wild side at the Lehigh Valley Zoo. However you enjoy spending your free time, there's something here for every member of the family. For more information on things to do in the Lehigh Valley, head over to Discover Lehigh Valley's website at discoverlehighvalley.com. Okay, we're back with Qiana Cressman, the founder of Emerge Woman magazine. Qiana, it's so great to get to know you a little bit better, hear a little bit about your upbringing. Who would ever think the creator of a magazine has this amazing background in lab, in healthcare, in nonprofits. You've lived down south. Tell me a little bit about where the idea for this magazine came about.
Well, throughout my career, I've always sort of been behind the scenes championing women and encouraging them to rise to their highest potential, and just connecting women. Oh, I know that you would, be a great fit for, this board, or be a great fit for this group, or meeting this person. I was always connecting people, or either just pouring into women, to just inspire them to share their voice, to be the best and truest expression of themselves. And in the midst of that, I was still hiding a little bit. So in discovering and being comfortable in my own skin and making a decision that I wasn't going to hold back any of who I am anymore, that's where Emerge came from. I saw that accomplished women didn't quite have a place where they could sort of be vulnerable, because when you are in a place of power, or you are in a prominent role, it's hard for us to sometimes take our hat off and say, you know what, I'm really struggling because I lost a client, or I'm really going through a horrible divorce right now and I'm just trying to find my footing, but I still have a team of 2,000 to lead. Whatever the case is, I felt like sometimes it's the strong ones, the ones that look strong, that we don't check on. And so
that's an interesting perspective, because I do think that one of the challenges of leading, especially as a woman, is you're expected to handle a lot. And for me, I feel like there's almost a responsibility to the generation before me, and maybe a couple before me, that fought hard.
Yes.
For the way things are today. And I'm not saying there isn't a way to go.
Of course.
But, there's this idea that, we have a lot of opportunities now. And I think of a lot as a working mom, things are more flexible than ever in some ways.
Absolutely.
And so I feel that, but it doesn't mean you don't still have the struggles, the challenges, the exhaustion. And I totally agree with you. Women need a place to feel comfortable saying, I'm human.
Exactly.
I'm human.
Exactly.
So I love that is
I look
the genesis
like $1 million,
of this.
but sometimes I only feel like $2. And then connect with other women and tell them, how you made it through your valley while you're at the mountaintop.
You do a lot of empowerment speaking. Has that been something? How did that evolve? Where did that come from?
Started from childhood. So I was the kind of child that I remember I was never afraid to speak in front of people. So I was maybe about 10 years old, and someone didn't show up to read a poem at a family reunion. And so one of the adults came to me and said, hey, we need you to read this poem. And I'm thinking, are they crazy? I'm here as a guest with my grandma, my aunts, and I went and read the poem, and everybody started crying in the audience, like, who is this child? And things just continue to happen like that, even into my career. And I realized that just as someone has a love for numbers, or a love for technology, or a love for athletics, I had a love for words, and a love for communicating, and a love for connecting with people. And it was natural as inhaling and exhaling for me.
I feel like I'm listening to my own story as you're talking.
I mean,
it really is so strong. But for me, I don't know that I keyed in to that piece until later in life.
And I feel like I'm listening to my story because
I
that's
knew
what
I
happened
was
to
good
me.
at it. I knew I was good at public speaking. I was
Right.
very good extemporaneously on my feet. Presentations were always a natural in school. But I don't know that I gave it a name or called it something. And I almost feel like even just in the last 5 years, it's been an evolving thing.
Yes.
People will kind of come to me and say, can you speak to us about this or help with that? And I'm like, I look to my left, I look to my right, like, wait, are they talking to me?
Exactly.
And now I'm starting to understand that I'm keying into, I guess, the react, not that you do it for the reaction, but you understand that the words have power.
That's it.
And
That's it.
there's responsibility with that.
I love that.
But I
So
I
true.
love the same idea of women. I mean, I for a long time, I have a staff of mostly younger women.
Yes.
And
That's awesome.
and I love what I do.
Congratulations. by the
Thank
way.
you. Thank you. And I love what I do. But you know what I've figured out? What I really love is sort of the mentorship, the leadership, the inspiring, the helping, because they always tease me all the time, like I give them life lessons. But I do. I sort of feel like, they'll come to me with something about saving or figuring out a car or something, and I love that. So the speaking was something you had throughout. It was just a gift.
But once again, I hadn't really labeled it myself either. Like, oh, I'm
You were
going to be a
spending
public
half the
speaker.
time hiding in a lab.
Exactly. That was a part of it. And so I would go to conferences and they were like, no, you don't work in a lab.
way.
And so then I finally started, realizing, and it took a natural, course to go into presenting and doing the educational side of my industry. But on the side, I was behind the scenes and I ended up getting ordained. And I was
Now, had your faith always been an important part of your life?
For most of it, yes.
Okay.
Like more so when I turned 19, that's when I really became grounded in my faith, and that. But it never, stopped me from, pursuing anything, that I felt that I was called to do, whether it was in business or professionally. But yeah, when I was 19, that's when my faith took a deeper connection to God, and so at that point, I knew that I was called to the ministry at 19, and I didn't look for a pulpit or any kind of church to speak in. I just started right where I was. I would mentor girls in my college dormitory. I would, give insights that were just once again beyond my years. So before I ever hit an executive position professionally, I was always counseling executives behind the scenes.
And why not go into that as a profession? What was the decision there? Was there a decision?
In ministry
Yes.
as a profession? That's a great question. I think as a young woman, I faced some of the same things in ministry that women face in business. When you're the only and the first at the table. And so I remember being 21 and I was at church and a gentleman said to me, hey, we're having this conference and I would love for you to speak, because he heard me speak in another event at church. And I said, oh, sure, I'd be happy to. And then he said, how old are you? And I remember thinking, okay, so you thought I was fine until you asked me how old I was. And I told him. He said, oh, no, you're too young. You're too young. Mm-hmm. That crushed me. And that narrative played in my head for the next 10 years of my life. So I had to fight with it.
It's an interesting thing. I think we think about, you bring up something really interesting that resonates with me as well, not surprisingly. I think we think a lot about feminism, right? Male, women, I'm a woman. I think we think a lot about racism. I don't know that we think a lot about ageism.
You're right.
And it is interesting. I think that if you're very capable at a young age, we often are dismissive because you haven't, I don't know what, you haven't lived enough life. And
that's so good.
I'm thinking this, I think, for the first time and talking to you. I think that's a huge reason that I encourage and mentor these young women and men, but the women on my team, to get involved and do things. Go sit on a committee, go serve on a board, do a fundraiser, show up at the thing, because the only way to learn it is to do it. And if I believe in them, somebody else is going to believe in them.
I need to interview you and emerge for that one. That's a great point. It's true.
I remember thinking at 23, in my first job, and I'm in New York, I'm in network news, but I remember thinking, well, I can't do that yet because I'm too young.
Exactly.
If only I were 30, if only I were this age, if only I were that age. Of course, then you wake up one day and you say, ooh, boy,
exactly. And where did you get that?
That's interesting to me that you had that experience.
I faced ageism more than racism, to be honest, because people couldn't handle my posture and my persona for my age. It just didn't match. It's like, how can she be 21 or 27 and have thoughts like this? But for the first 10 years of my life, I was raised by a single mom. So I had to mature with her. And so we had to be responsible. She couldn't do some of the things that maybe her younger friends could at that time because she had me. So she went on to have a beautiful, almost 40-year marriage before my dad passed. But that first 10 years, it was me and her. And so it was, Qiana, you have to learn how to think for yourself. You have to be responsible. All of, the decision making. And it wasn't hard on me because I was in a very loving family, but it just matured me in a way that
it gives you, in some ways, you can look at it as giving you opportunities.
That's it. It did.
My husband and I, we joke that our children need a little more adversity in their life because
I love that.
because he's a child of divorce. I'm a child of divorce. And we're both very lucky. We have wonderful, loving parents who went on to marry amazing step parents, and we've had great. But there is something about going through that and being the oldest children that I think taught us a little more self-reliance. And we look at each other, we're teenagers, and we're like, how do we make them a little more self-reliant or responsible? But they've had this very idyllic two-parent home where everything's taken care of. And it's funny, the adversity toughens you up a little, forces you to grow up. And so the ministry, being an ordained minister, what kind of opportunities has that presented you with?
Oh, wow. To speak in a lot of different forums.
Have you married anyone?
Yes.
You married people?
Actually, we have something coming up next July. Yes, we've married quite a few people and done vow renewals, all that. We'll be flying to Boca Raton probably in a few months to do a home dedication where we just pray over, a homeowner who may have bought their own home and things like that. So, yeah, but we are out of the box ministers. Like, I believe in living what I stand for more than carrying a title. So it feels awkward to hear people say, you're a minister, because I'm Qiana, but that's fine to say that. I'm just saying, I just believe in living the message. And then I love when people say, I knew something was different. I would rather live.
Do you feel like it's a way to express your faith in everyday living as opposed to people coming into the box of a church?
I feel like it's both. I feel like it can be expressed in both, and you don't have to be boxed in. But I do feel like, just like anything else, you have your lane in ministry. Everybody isn't doing the same thing or called to the same thing. Just find what your lane is and work your lane.
All right. Good advice. Good advice. Work your lane. I think that works for everything. Qiana, we're going to take a quick break, but we're going to come back and I want to hear everything about Emerge.
Right.
Stick with us, guys. We'll be right back. Any time of year, the Lehigh Valley is an exceptional place for food, drink, and entertainment. Whether you're cooling off from the summer heat at Dutch Springs or shopping for just the right kind of gift at Christkindl Market, you will make memories all year round. For more information on what the Lehigh Valley has to offer, check out Discover Lehigh Valley's website at discoverlehighvalley.com. All right, everybody, welcome back. I'm here with Qiana Cressman from Emerge Woman magazine. Qiana, we've talked about your childhood. We've talked about your really interesting career, your speaking, your ministry. Now I want to talk about the magazine. Yes. 1 year. I'm going to guess it was in the works for a long time before that. You talked about the importance of inspiring women and how it's just been something you've done in every aspect of your life. How did you formulate this magazine, and what is really the idea behind it and your mission?
The idea behind it is to inspire women, particularly in personal and business development. So that's our niche. That's where most of our articles stem from and focus on. But actually, I'm glad my life was preparation for the moment of creating Emerge, but it wasn't something I had in my mind that I never planned to create a publication. But all of the publications that I've been in, the writing and blogging I've done on other platforms for women, the speaking, I began to see, wow, this was actually preparation for where I am today in launching this publication and why women flock to it so much. And you said what most of the women, our readers, say. You said, I feel like I'm listening to my own story. And that is the number one part of or piece of feedback that I hear from my readers, that I feel like I'm reading my story. And what I love is that it transcends race, it transcends age, because it's multi-generational. So we have, young ladies in here who were 7 years old and wrote their book and did book signings at Barnes and Noble, to women who are 75 and overcame a cancer battle, and how you can, get through that process. And so I felt I wanted to not only create a publication that inspired women to be the best and truest expression of themselves, but also that created a bridge between generations.
So
And
important.
so, exactly, which you do a lot of mentoring, so you understand that is wisdom on both sides. And even if you're younger, you're facing things that people didn't face 40 years ago, pressures, the rate of suicide, all of these different things that, our younger generation face right now that we don't need to discount and just ball up into, oh, they're only a millennial or they're a centennial or they're a Gen Xer or whatever it is. We need to honor and value their voice as well. So
that's what I love about the stage of life right now for myself.
Right?
And I think that the 40s and I'm hoping the 50s are that cool bridge, like 20 years or whatever, where you have enough wisdom to have perspective.
I love that.
But you also have so much to learn. So it's so cool to look up and I have my mom and a couple of her friends that have been her friends forever. Almost the aunts in my life that are not the aunts, although I have aunts too.
Right.
That I love spending time with. And we're just like girlfriends now.
I love that.
I've graduated.
Exactly.
And then I've got, my, friends' kids or the ladies on my team or someone I serve on a board with that are 15 years, 20 years younger. And it's so cool. There's so much to learn.
It is.
From both sides.
It is.
So
It's
a
even
great
listening
stage
to Dakota,
of life.
I was listening to her as we were talking before the segment began, and she was saying, my generation, we like to hear people's story. We like to know why. That's why I like Unscripted so much. And I was like, see, these are the things that we can learn too as we pour into and build up the next generation and what relates to them, and not just lumping on what we think will work, but actually hearing their ideals and hearing their voices. And that's what Emerge seeks to do.
Now, what about
uplift.
the nuts and bolts of starting a magazine? So I know how to start a TV show, but I do not know how to start a magazine. So what did you do, and how long was this in the works in order for you to actually be able to officially launch?
Well, having been worked for major nonprofits my whole career, I had a little bit of insight onto marketing and some things like that. But I'm pretty much an activator, so I don't take long. Once the concept comes and I know this is something I want to do, I'm really a quick move. Yeah, sometimes my personality test is, give it a break because you're a little too fast for people sometimes. So.
Oh, that's so weird. Mine doesn't say anything like that, Qiana.
That's so funny. So the concept came to me in February of 2018, and we had a finished product by that July, a full publication. Did the photo shoots, made it legal, got all the things that I needed to do.
And at that point, were you
lined up my
using
ladies.
guest writers? How was that working?
I had a couple of writers that I contracted, but what's different about Emerge is most women write their own story. They tell their own narrative. We obviously edit it and things like that, but one of the reasons people love our magazine is because it really sounds like them talking, because it is. So we've had Olympians, and it's several, multimillionaires. It's people who were homeless and built their lives all over again, and they're telling their own story. And so when women read it, they really do feel like they're mirroring themselves.
And what's your reach on this magazine? Where are you?
We have, we're in 20 states across the U.S. I would say we reach about 5,000 women monthly through our blog, through our podcast, through things like that. But, we're growing. I intentionally didn't want to move fast because it was more about quality than quantity. And so we were really learning what our voice was and what was resonating with our readers that aligned with what was in my heart, to create within Emerge. And I felt like we've done a good job at doing that. So now we're going to, ramp things up within the new year. But people were like, oh, I want you to do this and have an event and do more of this, and we weren't there yet.
How important is it for you as a woman of color, African American woman, to have this voice? And I know that, just in the little bit I know you, that you sort of are woman first. But that is an important piece. I mean, it's an important piece, I think, for you to have that voice. So how important is it, and what role does it play in this platform?
Being a woman, because it doesn't.
No, being a woman of color.
Oh, being a woman of color.
Yes.
Wow. It's huge to me because I didn't really see a me when I was younger. I was told, we went for what we call the big careers: be a doctor, be a dentist, be an attorney, but I always loved to write. I would write, like, what child do you know that will write extra after they submit their little book report? So I would write my short stories and submit them to my English teacher for her to edit. and poems. But I didn't look at that as a viable career when I was younger because I didn't see many women of color. Oprah hadn't started the O magazine yet when I was younger. So I didn't really have anything that I saw that this could be a viable path for me. So when I was in high school and I would, one of our projects was to produce a video, all in Spanish for my Spanish class. And I did the whole thing. I wrote the scripts, I organized everything. So my Spanish teacher pulled me outside of the class and said, you really need to go into communications. And I remember thinking, okay, Miss McKenna, she's like the meanest teacher, in the high school. So I said, no, and I never paid it any attention. And so, because I didn't have that visual of a woman in color, she was in journalism, obviously, Oprah was, but at that time I didn't see anybody, writing, publishing. And I know there were people who did that, but they were older, like, Toni Morrison and people who are, more seasoned in age. So it didn't really connect to me.
Making it relatable.
And that's part of our mission.
Certainly.
To keep it real, relevant, and relatable to today's woman.
That's awesome.
So, and girls.
That's great. I think that's really important. And it is, one of the lessons I learned through my service with United Way was this concept that you only know what you're exposed to. So a lot of times if your whole world is a 4-block radius,
Right.
you don't even know what to dream, let alone do it, or what to study, let alone go do it.
Exactly.
And that just meant so much to me. And it's been, very powerful concept, of course, in the nonprofit world.
Exactly.
Common, and that, that. But learning that, I thought, boy, it's important that there are examples out there of all different kinds of things for all different types of people to follow a dream.
Exactly.
So tell me what has this last year been like, and where's Emerge going? Because year one it's a big one to get under your belt. But
right. What's next?
What's next?
Yes. So as we celebrate this next year, we're just going to build upon the foundation that we've already laid. Big part of what we want to do is tell the story of different women, and so we will. Some of the women who have been featured in our magazines will interview them through video podcasts, sort of like this, to share some of their stories in business development and like what it's like being an entrepreneur. I heard you saying when we were at a meeting together that it's a different world when you are getting a paycheck than when you are an entrepreneur. It is a completely different world. And so being in both worlds, I understand the difference in both, which is why we target women who are professionals as well as entrepreneurs, because it's a whole different work ethic, lifestyle, different type of stress that comes with that. So where we're going next is to continue to inspire women who are on that entrepreneurial journey and their inner life, the inner life of that woman. So that's where the ministry part comes into, without me saying stuff that may sound churchy, but it's really to inspire women to keep going, to keep growing, to keep being the best expression.
Well, we're multifaceted people, certainly,
right?
Qiana. I think that the spiritual aspect of who we are, whatever that spirit is, whatever that belief system is still a part of us.
Right.
And to tap into that is so meaningful. I love the idea of following women through the journey, as opposed to just a one time.
Exactly.
I think that's a cool concept that's very unique.
And so in the next year, we'll be building upon that, the journeys that we do follow, and just hearing more from our readers and sharing some of their stories and what they've, how they've benefited from Emerge. We've helped people out of domestic violence situations through our magazines. Women have gotten many coaching clients and just, become an even better version of themselves, which is what my intention was in creating this, that when you pick this up, that you'll be an even better you after, reading some of the stories. And
I love that. That's a phenomenal mission. We are so blessed and so grateful to have you here in this Lehigh Valley. Of course, Emerge Woman is in 20 states, as you said, only growing, but we'll still consider you a homegrown and part of,
it was
part
here
of our
first in the valley.
That's right. So, that we like to take great pride in those things. Thank you for coming and speaking with me today. Before I let you go, we're going to do our rapid fire questions. You have not heard these.
I have not heard them.
All right. If you were a flavor of ice cream, not what you would eat, but what you would be described as, if you were to be described as a flavor of ice cream, what would you be and why?
Cayenne pepper.
Because you're spicy?
I spice it up. I'm going to challenge thinking. I'm going to, go against the norm in a good way, but I would be spicy.
I love it. If you could pick up any skill instantly, a skill you don't have, what would it be?
Mind reader.
Mind reader.
Yes.
What would the title of your autobiography be?
She lived, she loved, she served.
Ooh, Ooh, that's great. You better go trademark that this afternoon. You have a few weeks till this goes public.
Okay, trademark it.
All right. If you could have 3 guests to dinner, who would they be?
I know everybody loves Oprah, but hey, I do. So it would be Oprah. It would be maybe Mother Teresa. And it would be Russell Wilson from the Seahawks.
Oh, right.
Now, I love my guy, but I'm just saying I love football too. So.
That would be a very interesting dinner that we just put together.
Yes.
All right. What's the best place you've ever traveled to?
I like Jamaica. I can't think of anything. Tortola. I went on a cruise and it was a small island called Tortola, and I loved it. I loved the tour that we took and the side that they showed for visitors. But yeah, that was a really nice place.
What's a place you've never been that you want to get to?
I do want to go to Maui. I've not been to Hawaii yet, so that's on my husband and our radar.
All right, good. Hawaii's a good one.
Okay, good.
You will not regret it.
I won't regret it, huh? Okay,
Absolutely
awesome.
not. All right, perfect. Well, Qiana Cressman, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for sharing your wisdom and your support of women in our community and beyond. And congratulations on the success of Emerge Woman magazine. We can't wait to see what you do next.
Thanks, Ashley.
Thanks, Qiana. All right, you've been listening to Unscripted with Russo. Until next time.